Thanks, Harsh. I think that's some good advice. The numbers are going to make a huge difference as we look forward to, achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, the global goals. We have 15 years to do it. We have to get a quick start, and the numbers are going to help us do that. And to get us started about thinking about how we all can help do that, in the next conversation entitled "What Now?" Getting Involved for Global Goals Success, I'm really pleased to bring out Simon Moss of the Global Poverty Project, which is the organization behind the massively successful Global Citizen Festival, and our good friend Boaz Paldi from the UN Development Program. Please welcome Simon and Boaz.
We're going to do the standing up. Simon, great to have you here.
You're welcome.
I know that you've had incredible days in the last few days. It's amazing that you're still awake.
Barely.
I know you told me last night that you were in an edit room the other night for a very, very long time, you and Project Everyone. What's happening next? What are you going to do next for the next 15 years for the global goals?
So I think for us it starts actually with this first week. The goals, I think, got off to a great launch on Friday and over the weekend, and we recognise that telling everyone is the very first step. We need to tell everyone so we have goals that are politically accountable. At the end of the day, these goals mean nothing if they're not a tool to get people to force their governments to actually follow through on this promise they've made in our name. For us, that then looks like continuing to build a movement of millions of global citizens all around the world who can continue to take action in their communities, working with partners and all of the amazing groups, many of you are here right now, to make sure that we get follow through. So for us, that means a couple of things. First, it means looking at specific issues, whether it's making sure that World Food Day in a couple of weeks in Italy, the G7 delivers on their pledge to live 500 million people out of hunger in the next 10 to 15 years. Whether that's following up on an invitation that President Jim Kim of the World Bank with Big Bird from Sesame Street made, which is to say, hold us accountable for the commitments we've made in lifting people out of extreme poverty. For us, making sure that we really follow through on that, and that we continue to tell the story to citizens around how they're involved is going to be absolutely key.
And it's a 15-year plan. We were talking about 2030. It's 2030 now here. Can you really sustain this for that long? Is it sustainable?
I think it needs to be. I think that if we keep trying to do exactly the same things we're all going to do right now this year, will we have a social goods summit here at the 92Y in 15 years? I don't know. But what I do know is that there's no point making a commitment like this unless we're going to follow through. It took 5 years for most of the world to really take the Millennium Development Goals seriously. We saw huge progress from 2005 through this year, and if we're going to achieve this hugely ambitious agenda, then we need to make sure that we use all 15 years that we've got. And you know what? We can get incredibly close to achieving all of these goals, and if someone says to me, look, Simon, it's 2030 and only 14 of the goals were achieved, the other 3 are still a way off, how did that go? I'd think that is a huge success. And that's only going to happen if people all around the world, here in America, whether you're watching the UNDP stream in Africa and Latin America and Europe, are taking it seriously to make sure they do all that they need to do over the next 15 years, pivoting, using technology, using the new ideas that emerge to make sure that we follow through on these goals.
And and you think that this week that you and Project Everyone and everyone is so active, and so do you think that was really that's what you needed, this really strong opening?
I think it's the very start of what's needed. It is by absolutely no means enough by itself. I mean, making something famous is pointless unless you've got the next bit, the thing that comes after that, which is that we have 193 leaders who've said, I promise. And we also know that world leaders have a habit of promising and then not delivering. And so what we need to do is say, how do we make sure that everyone knows that they've got a promise to keep, and that we make sure that these aren't just random world leader goals where some predominantly men in suits got together and tried to write a shopping list of all of the nice things in the world. We need to make sure that these are real goals for real citizens. And so I think that it's an important starting point, but there is so much more to do, and what we need is all of us to be thinking, what am I going to do to make these goals accountable? Whether I work in the field in places like West Africa or Southern Africa or Southeast Asia, and I'm saying, I need to work at how to force my government to deliver on the promises they've made. Or whether we're in a place like here in America where the $28, $30 billion a year worth of foreign aid that the US government spends could be spent really well in support of these goals, or could be spent doing other irrelevant things. And so I think that to me is why the fame bit starts being important, so that we can focus instead of on whether we should care, on what we're doing to achieve the goals.
And so here we have an interested audience. We have a massive audience online, the Mashable audience, all of our networks audience. What do we do actually? What should I now do? What do these people do?
So the first thing, and this is very selfish, that I would say is we've got a 1-hour special of the Global Citizen Festival and the launch of the Global Goals going out over the next week to about 70 countries. It's on BBC One in the UK in about an hour at 10:30 British time. And I think that that's one of the tools we've got. We've got all these great speeches, all of the things from this weekend's events here at Social Good Summit, that we want to get out there and start seeding this idea. I don't really care if everyone remembers what all 17 goals are. I'll admit I might not have memorised all 17 yet myself.
I can't believe that.
But what I do want to know, and what I do want to make sure we do, is that we get the word out there so that we can then start campaigning immediately. So for us at Global Citizen, that's about working with our partners on a series of promises that governments have already made around food, around health, around climate change. We have a huge opportunity coming up in Paris in 6 weeks' time, what many people are calling the first real test of this agenda, that we need to come back and focus on. And we need to make sure that groups all around the world have got the tools they need to push their governments. And my hope would be that over the coming months, we can get not just the goals well known, we can get the right indicators and targets that we then have a series of governments adopting and saying, this is how we'll measure our progress. We're not just going to say yay for goals, we're going to say, I specifically sign up and support in the way that South Africa said they're going to support for some specific indicators around hygiene that they think as chair of the G77 are vital, that they announced at the Global Citizen Festival on Saturday. Or whether it's Japan who said, you know what, the idea of universal healthcare is something we're committed to. They're, I believe, president of the G8 next year, or what is now the G7. Their ability to make sure that that's an agenda that, while the G7 is less relevant, is still hugely important, actually gets delivered on, I think, are the things that we all need to be focused on.
Thank you so much.
Buzz, you're
Good
welcome.
luck.
Thanks, mate.